Having a little bit of legal knowledge and understanding can be a very, very helpful thing. Today, I'm just going to quickly go through something that a lot of people won't know about and can be tricked with. It's a little thing, very powerful in law. It's called mens rea. Mens rea. Basically, mens rea is having a guilty mind to an offence. So if you've done a crime, and you've got mens rea of that crime, you know that you've done wrong. So they need a lot of offences need to prove that you knew what you were doing was a crime. And I'm not talking about being ignorant to the law. I'm saying that you have the honestly held belief that what you was doing was right or wrong. For instance, I'll quickly give you is that you're walking down a road and you see a guy sprinting and he's got a lady's bag. He's got a hoodie on, he's sprinting, he's looking sort of like, really sort of focused and forceful. And what goes through your head is this guy has just done a bag snatch off a lady because he's holding a bright red handbag and it don't look, his colour, that sort of thing. So if you rugby tackled him and in the belief that he'd robbed that bag off of someone, why would he be running at full sprint with a bag? But then you found out that actually he was the brother of a lady that was just about to get on a train or a plane and she had her passport in that bag. Then all of a sudden you'd feel a bit of a plonker and you'd be like, oh no. Well, the guy then turns around and says, right, you've hurt me, and the old bill that's now standing there, and they've nicked you for rugby tackling this guy that was only trying to help his sister out by getting a passport there. You think you're in trouble, and you've made an honest mistake, and a lot of the time the copper might turn around because he might be thinking of, sort of like the arrest and the conviction and stuff like that, and definitely the magistrates would be thinking about the conviction. They don't want you getting off because they get a nice bit of fine. They'll be thinking, you got it wrong, mate, and now you might have to pay the penalty. But you don't. The mens rea was that you honestly believed you were stopping a mugging, a criminal from running off with someone's property. Now, it's a sort of self-defence, defence, which is a common law defence. And self-defence, you can defend yourself. You can defend another person. You can defend your property. You've got to do it all reasonably. The Criminal Law Act 1967, Section 3, I believe, is what you need to look at. By the way, folks, sorry I didn't say this earlier. Grab yourself a pen and paper. Make a couple of notes. I'm going to give you a quick going over of it. Take the notes. If you're interested in what I'm saying, look it up for yourself, because you reading it and reading it again and understanding it is going to be a lot better than muggins here just telling you it on a short YouTube video. So get yourself a pen and paper, and you can always watch it again if you missed this. So we've got Criminal Law Act 1967, Section 3 is something you need to look at, and also look up mens rea. Mens rea is MENS REA, and it's all about, guys, that if you honestly believe, if you hold the honest belief that what you're doing is defending yourself or preventing a crime or defending your property, and you act reasonable, you have got a defence in law. It's not saying that ignorance is a defence, because you should know laws and you should know what is right and wrong more than what laws are, because there's so many. No one knows all the laws. I think there's something like 250,000 different laws, and they're very, very complex. They're made that way, though. They're made that so that people fall foul of the law, and obviously it's a revenue generator. But a good case to look at as well is the Brazilian guy, John Charles de Menezes, that got shot by the old Bill on the tubes in 2005. He got shot by anti-terror police. They shot him thinking that he was a suicide bomber, and even though the guy was completely innocent, God rest his soul, even though I don't believe in God, they thought that he was a suicide bomber. They held the honest belief that he was a suicide bomber, and the reason they shot him and got away with it was because the mens rea of that case was that they believed that he was going to kill a lot of people. So they used reasonable in the circumstances, what they believed to be reasonable force to stop him from harming, scores of people. And that is why they got away with it. That they got the wrong guy. He shouldn't have been shot. The guy should still be alive. But he was mistaken for a suicide bomber, and they used reasonable force in the situation on what they thought was a suicide bomber. So even if you're mistaken, for instance, going back to the bag snatch incident, if the copper sort of like that turns up, he turns around and says, but you was wrong. You go, oh yeah, I was wrong. Oh no, maybe I now need to be punished for making a mistake. No, you don't. You have still got the defence in law, the common law defence, that you believed that guy was a mugger and you took action in the spur of the moment. You might have got it wrong, but you're allowed to get things wrong as long as it's reasonable. Everything has got to be reasonable. You can't do something that's unreasonable and then claim that you thought it was reasonable. For instance, if you just started stamping on the mugger's head, the suspected mugger's head, that would have been unreasonable and you'd have gone too far, and you will get nicked for that. But if you rugby tackled the guy and just held him to the floor, and at the first moment when you realise you've made a mistake, you've let him go and stopped assaulting him, then you've got that as a defence. There's also another couple of things, like for instance, it's got to be necessary. You can't do something that's unnecessary. For instance, I don't know, if you know who the guy was and you knew where he lived and his name and stuff like that, they might say you didn't necessarily need to tackle him because you knew who he was and you could have given us the details. The other one is if you've got a possibility of retreat, if someone comes to you to assault you, you can defend yourself. But if you've got the opportunity to walk away from that and you don't, you can find yourself in a little bit of a muddle there. This is why, guys, you need to just go and have a look at the Criminal Law Act 1967, Section 3, read up on a bit of law, read it again, work it out, have a chat with your friends about it, have a chat with anyone about it, and sort of and understand, look at some case law and stuff. I mean, there's a really good one, I think it's Regina versus Williams of 1987, I believe. Regina Williams, 87. That is a really interesting case. I won't spoil it for you. It's a case where a guy saw a big guy assaulting a young bloke and intervened, thinking that the big bloke was beating up the young bloke. The big bloke turned around and said, no, I'm a police officer and he's just committed a crime. The bloke then turned around and said, prove you're a copper. Then the bloke went, I can't, so he carried on beating him up, and it's a really interesting case. The long and short of it was that the youth was mugging someone or doing a crime or something. The other guy got hold of the bloke, but because the bloke hadn't seen it from the outset, he made the honestly held mistake and belief. He had the honestly held belief that he could not allow the bigger bloke to assault the little bloke because he thought he was just beating him up for whatever reason. So he stepped in. So he made a mistake, and even though he made a mistake, he still acted with good intention in the honestly held belief that a crime was being committed. By the way, you can also get older people if you believe they're committing a crime, or a prisoner at large or something like that as well. So go and have a look, guys. Yeah, have a look at Regina versus Vagina, I usually say. Regina versus Williams of 87. Really good little bit of case law. Also, have a look at the Jean-Charles de Menezes case in the Tube of 2005. All the police got away with shooting that innocent guy because they thought he was a suicide bomber, and because they thought he was a suicide bomber, shooting him isn't unreasonable. It isn't really. Not that I'm sticking up for the guy dying, but let's be honest, you don't not kill a suicide bomber, because you know, if they're not dead, the only way to make sure they don't blow up is to make sure they're dead. So, but in that case, they was very, very wrong. I can do loads on the John Charles case, maybe for another time. Just trying to think, guys. Yeah, if you've got a guilty mind when you commit a crime, yeah, you're gonna get that. That's the test for it. You know, if you haven't got a guilty mind when you commit an offence, the mens rea of that might help you on a criminal trial. And like I keep saying, if the solicitor, the judge, the magistrate, the copper, if anyone turns around at you and says, but you got it wrong, you might think, yeah, I did, maybe I deserve to be punished. No, just make sure, if you had the honestly held belief that you was trying to prevent a crime or defend yourself, you might find that it will save you a lot of grief. Guys, look up mens rea. Cheers, bye.